Past players, past legends, past legends.
And now let's go to your role at Adelaide. And look, I love the terms which are used, because at one stage I was involved, the women's footy at Nord, and I'm a Nord person, but you're technically employed by the AFL. So I was the assistant communication management of enforcement officer. So they love giving a title.
I'm going to have to get some business cards for you, mate.
Bloody ridiculous. Where your title at the Adelaide Football Club, you commenced employment assuming the position of Manager of Innovation, Systems and Projects. Now, what did that exactly entail then, Craig?
Very good. So innovations was just looking outside the box for something that we could do that was innovative. And, salary cap, all the restrictions on teams, there's not much you can do to be the best. So if you've got, say, the best leadership program, or you've got a communications membership communications software or something. So I was investigating all sorts of things, and things that we take for granted now. I was investigating a ticketing transfer system using phones. Like now, that's all we do. Exchange of tickets for members if they couldn't go. So they, instead of taking your ticket to your mate's house, you could send it to them via a phone, which you can do now. Database systems for membership, GPS systems. We were investigating that back then, and now that's happens. Champion Data. Champion Data came on board. That was a big project. I ran that for, I think, in '98. In the box, I was on the computer in the box with all the feeds of stats coming through, and now it's just massive, that sort of scene. So that's the stuff I was doing, and that was in the early 2000s. And then, just the system stuff is just standard operating procedures for a business. So Stephen Trigg decided that we need to be really organised and have the right systems for doing everything. So the quality of what we delivered was top notch all the time, and he did a great job in that. So I played around in that area for a while.
Do you find that bit there being what I would probably call an open area, as in it's always evolving and you're always having to adapt?
Oh, yeah, it's a constant review process, those sort of things, and that's what we implemented back then. We had about 12 or 13 areas that we thought were pretty important, and every month we'd review each one ongoing and tweak it and improve. So, and it's still, there's still that process in place at the club now.
So you can claim that you're actually the person who won the '98 premiership, bugger Blythe or Craigie's fitness range.
It was all on the numbers.
It was all you, mate.
No, I don't know about that.
So reading further, you were studying a Master of Sports Administration, having already completed a Bachelor of Management stuff. So that basically almost your forerunner to what you're currently doing, setting you up in that regard to some extent.
Yeah, it's a good way to, like, I was approached by a person quite a few years ago that said to me, if I want to get on in life, I need to probably do some study, and I took that advice and first did a marketing degree at UniSA, and then when I got to the Crows, there was a couple of guys there that were keen to do something, and Nick Takos and Steve Sanders, I got together with them and we did a MBA in sports management through Deakin Uni, and that was great. And even back then in the early 2000s, it was online, and that sort of, I guess you could say it set me up for roles in the sporting industry, even though probably didn't land any for the next 10 or so years after that.
And so how long have you now been in the role with North Adelaide? Because you took over from, what were you doing before that, before you took over from Greg Edwards at North Adelaide, mate?
Yeah, so after I left the Crows in 2013 and probably bounced around a little bit. I worked for the state government. I worked at Prince Alfred College. I worked for the City of Adelaide in sort of business development, marketing roles there. And my last stint was actually really good fun. It was down at City of Alexandrina, down at Galway, working on a tourism project down there. And then the role at North Adelaide came up back in 2021, and thought I looked at it and I thought, oh, do I really want this? I was enjoying a quite peaceful drive down to Galway each day. But my kids actually talked me into it. They said, no, you got to give it a crack. It's you. It's, it suits you. And I put my hand up and thought, oh, well, we'll give it a go. And I've never looked back and really enjoying it. Yeah.
It's a big role though now too, but it's probably evolved where you don't have that 3 month off at the end of the footy season. So now North Adelaide season's finished. You're heavily involved in finals in other competitions, trying to recruit. And also then with women's footy starts reasonably soon as well. So it's involved really now to it is a 12-month whole bracket, whole circuit sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, someone said to me the other day, oh, you must be all right. You've got a bit of downtime and, you sort of don't want to be rude, but no.
It's almost busier.
Plenty going on.
Almost busier at the end of the season than it is during the season.
Well, it's a different busy. The thing that we don't do now is Saturday. Like, there's nothing on Saturday. Well, if you're not in the finals, our under 16s bowed out last week, so there's no weekend commitments now. So it's pretty much full board during the week, recruitment. I just did some work on partnerships and sponsorships today. We've got to tidy them up before next season, end of financial years, end of October. So there's a heap to do in the next couple of months, which is good. Yeah.
And then women's footy, which continues to grow. I admit I've got mixed views in terms of the development league side of things. I personally think the SANFL grew a bit too quick for its own good there. I'd still rather see those girls out at community clubs because community numbers are struggling a bit more now. The game's plateaued with the female. A lot of girls now, understandably, worry because of the huge ACL side of it, and that sort of thing. So, how do you feel about that? I've sort of given you my feelings, and I emphasise I'm not saying that on behalf of anyone else. I'm saying that's my thoughts. Your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, look, you could build a case for both. I think as league football clubs, we've still got to have one eye on the next level. So we can't just say, oh, bugger them, we'll just play our own game. So I think the development league in the women's competition is useful at the moment. Is it going to be the same in 5 years' time? Maybe not. Maybe there's an under 18 sort of program that'll come in, because I'm finding that most of the really good footballers in the women's competition are in that younger bracket. So the development league for a lot of clubs is an under sort of 23, 24 competition anyway, without any rules around that.
Yeah, so I think you're right. It may then just become exactly that. So it just become an 18 competition, then becomes a stepping stone to the league side, of which plenty of girls have just going through that, as we know. Like, you've got Indy Rashid, young Griggs, who debuted for Western Bulldogs last week, and that side, they're quite young anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I think things will be the same this season or 2025, but gives us plenty of time to work through it during the year and see what 2026 looks like.
What was your, just going back a little bit there, what was your initial contact as far as the SANFL getting the girls going? Because obviously the AFL program had been hugely successful and fast-tracked quite quickly. How quickly was it put onto the clubs or you guys that this is going to happen and you need to get organised for it?
Yeah, look, I wasn't around then, but my understanding is it was pretty similar. I think, what's the 9th season or 10th season of AFLW? Yep. So the SANFL have been going since about 2017, 2016, something like that. So it didn't take long. It certainly probably had a couple of years of planning by the looks of things, but a lot of players that played in those early years were from other sports and came in very late playing football. But now we're finding that the girls that were 8 or 9, 10 years ago are now your Indy Rashids and you mentioned other players who, Piper Window, they probably picked up a footy when they were 8 years old and did Auskick and all that. So, it's a different sort of type of player.
All right, so on to your son in terms I've always said that Stephen Kernan's the best junior played against. Pavlich is the best junior I ever umpired. And as James said, I can always be one person who can at least say that I said it before the draft that the Crows had to pick Pavlich when M. Blight overruled. Ryan is the best junior I've watched. And then go through when, he broke his leg really badly and that side of things and what the huge concern that was at the time as well, Craig.
Yeah, it sure was. That was in his call it your under 17 year, your bottom age year, as an under 18. Against Assumption College, it was sort of one of those games, the traditional game that they played every year. You either went to Melbourne and played it, and the corresponding year you come here. So I was down at Sacred Heart, and he had a really good season. Played in the under 16 championships and played against guys like Wiedering and I think Marchbank. They were the two key defenders for Victoria back then, and held his own. And just went up for a mark and came down and fractured it was a bit of a car accident type injury. And, fractured the top of the tibia, I think it was.
Yeah, I was going to say it was the top of the tibia.
Yeah, so you sort of think all the ligaments were okay, but it was all bone fractures and bruising. And Matty Liptak put him back together and did a great job. But early reports where he'd probably be lucky to play football, get him walking and running was the main priority. So there was a period there where we thought, oh well, maybe that dream's over. But to his credit, he worked pretty hard and everything came together. And 150 odd games later, he's had a good run.
Being that obviously you'd played at a reasonably high level, was he able to lean on you during that period?
Oh yeah, look, I'm not really an interfering type parent, but certainly always there for advice and chipping in when required. But he was pretty diligent with his rehab, and I certainly helped him along the way there. We've spent many a time at the Marion Aquatic Centre working in the pool there, and he actually got access to the Crows Ultra G, the running machine that alters the gravity. So they were pretty helpful with that. But he was pretty good. He's a pretty self-motivated kid.
I admit I may have had a crack at Em Rashido the day after that draft that we hadn't picked Ryan, and they just said it's purely, he just was open. He said it's purely on the medical report. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And how did you? So Hawthorn, and then of course the bizarre way he ended up at Port Adelaide. Obviously, as a family, you're pretty happy to get him back to South Australia, but it was a bit crazy the way it happened, mate.
Yeah, it was. It was sort of came out of the blue. Had a okay year. I think played finals that year into what was it, 16, 17, 218, end of 218, and got a call from his manager to say that Chad Wingard wants to go to Hawthorn, and Clarko had some previous relationships in some state teams, I think, or international teams, and got to know Chad, and he was going pretty well at the time too, I think. So something had to be done, and Ryan was the part of the piece to get it done. Yeah.
And what was his initial thoughts going to Hawthorn? Just backing back a little bit there.
Oh, no, that didn't matter. Like most of the kids that I've come across, mindset is doesn't matter where they go. I think that old, from years, I don't want to leave my home state and all that didn't really apply. And look, honestly, they were a fantastic club. As a family, we loved going over there and watching. And
and I knew that. I knew that as well, that you had praise for Hawthorn and all that. And Craig wanted to be a one club player. It certainly wasn't his call, and it just sort of snowballed from there. That he's now back at Port, and he's been going okay. He's had a few injury problems here and there, more soft tissue sort of stuff and that sort of things. But he's been pretty consistent at Port, mate.
Yeah, no, look, he had early days. There was a few issues, but I think the last few years pretty good. He's loved it. Got a great bunch of friends there. I think he's in his. That's 6 years at Port Adelaide, so he's played 100 games for the club now, which is great. And hopefully a few more to come in the next couple of weeks. It'll be nice.
One will do. One's enough, Craig. Come on. Some of us have still never got rid of that. The port bit amongst us and that side of things. Now, okay, Craig. Now, moving on, so as I said to you off air, if you want to call it, but you answer this however you like and all that. I'll state pretty firmly how I feel, and then you can go from there. Now, as we know, David Koch came out and tried to basically blame the SANFL for where Port Magpies or Port Power Reserves have finished, which I just think was crazy. Let's be real. If both AFL sides have very few injuries, the sides are generally more than competitive and generally around the mark of playing finals. Now, to blame that and carry on. Now, let's also remember the year before, Port Adelaide played finals and Scott Lysett was arguably best on ground against Centrals in the elimination final. Port decide to take him off. Understandably, they're classifying their AFL side as their number one priority. Not a problem with that. But don't then have a whinge at the competition underneath. Now, also this year, Nord lost Logan Evans before the start of the year. Now, I've got no problem at all if he'd been drafted, but he wasn't. He became a Port Power player as young Welsh did for Adelaide as an extra player. So they got virtually in Logan Evans to have a look at him. It was like a try before you buy thing, where he still should have been a Nord player. So I just don't get this whinging and why they think they're going to be so much better off in the VFL. I don't understand how you can then justify the financial side of it and everything. I don't get it. I know you're on the steering committee, so you've got to be careful on what you say, but don't worry, I'm going to tee off a bit more on David Koch later on in the show and that. But yeah, I feel pretty strongly on that as an SANFL nut, Craig.
Yeah, look, and I hear that from a lot of our supporters too. We just got to be really mindful that we don't want to be a competition that is under what we are now. We're the best competition outside of the AFL, and we've proved that with our state games and the players we attract. So we want to keep that standard. So if that standard, ideally still has Adelaide and Port players playing in that competition, because it makes it a better competition. But where they get their players from and the concessions that they have is what we're trying to work through. So we want to make them competitive. They do have times throughout the year through injury and interstate trips, because they'll take players with them and they won't be able to play in the SANFL. So there's times when, as a SANFL club, if you play them at the right time, you might have a win. If you're playing at the wrong time, you might not.
Lose.
So that's the way it goes.
That's pot luck.
I think history tells you that they've had quite a few opportunities in finals. I think in 2022, when we were in the finals, we played them in a second semi, and they made a prelim that year, the Crows boys. So I don't think we have to do too much, but we really need confirmation from the AFL on their thoughts before we can really do anything. Because if the AFL came out and said there's going to be a reserves competition next year, well, that sort of changes things. But if they say, nah, we're not interested for 5 years, we go, okay, well, we've got a 5-year plan. Let's have a look at some concessions to make them a little bit stronger, and that might be some more availability of players from interstate, because that'll make our competition better. Recirculating players from within South Australia is not going to make the competition better. No. So the concessions need to keep that in mind, and hopefully common sense will prevail. And presidents have often in certain clubs have said things a bit, maybe they're not informed as much as everyone else, perhaps. And
it wasn't good.
That's what happens. Yeah, but I won't get into that.
Oh no, we might have been standing next to a Port person who wasn't happy what he said, as we know that day. So I just think it could have been done. Yeah, it was just crazy and it was just silly.
Is the real possibility that this will happen within the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, he could, yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? I just don't. No one really. The AFL are the only ones that know if they want to set up a truly national reserves competition, and that hasn't filtered back to the SANFL yet.
Technically, at the moment, those clubs are contracted to the SANFL until 2020.
That's why I asked.
Technically,
yeah,
so
that's why I asked.
We just got to wait and see. One other passion in your life has certainly got to get a mention, Craig, because I know it's been a huge part. Is surf lifesaving, mate.
Yeah. Look, it's something I've done since I was a little tacker. First, but probably when I was about 10 or 11 years old. So I've kept it up. I've had moments playing footy where I haven't probably done too much of it, but later in life, it's been a real fun part of what I do, and it keeps me up and about and fit and healthy. So yeah, love it.
So looking forward to Friday night, and I suppose it's you can claim at least you've had an interest in both clubs. So yeah, it is. It's a bit of irony they're playing Hawthorn in. Really, probably it's bizarre. It's not so much Port winning to move on next week, is to almost save Ken Hinkley's career as well. So it's a bit of a crazy thing in that regard, mate.
Look, it's a big game regardless. It's you finish second, give yourself the double chance in case you have a hiccup, which they did, and hopefully you get a reaction and you have a good win, and then who knows what can happen in prelims. Sydney Cricket Ground doesn't really cause Port too many concerns. They've had some good wins over there in the years. So I think they're still in the hunt.
I think there's a crazy stat. I think it's 14 times teams who finished top 4 have got beaten by over 50 points in the first week of finals, have come back and won the next week. So that stat actually favours Port Adelaide. So, yeah, I think it'll be a close. I'll be very surprised if it's not a close game. Unless things then come out that Rosie's been carrying injuries, and we'll wait and see for the repercussions there and that side of things. So I wish Ryan luck, but go the Hawks, yeah. Hey, Craig, great.
Well, before we let you go, mate,
I hadn't forgotten.
Like we always do, is we like to go back on your career as to who are some of the best players you've played with, and you can pick 2 or 3 people. Obviously, you can spread it over West Adelaide or North Adelaide, whichever direction you want to go, mate.
Yeah, I think if I look at my early days at Westies, I had guys I was coming through just a bit older than me, like Grantley Filkey, Bruce Linder, you mentioned earlier. Probably Peter Miret was one of the more experienced players that I looked up to back then. Dexter Kennedy. There was a whole heap at Westies. They were fantastic. And then moving to North, we talked about the Jarman boys, Darryl Hart, Nick Redden, some great people there. Peter Bennett was probably one of the most underrated centre-half forwards going around. Terrific fella. And then lucky to play against some players like, Platten, you mentioned Kernahan before, played against Stephen and Chris McDermott as in juniors in school footy, Plimpton High versus Brighton High.
Yes, that's right, Plimpton versus Brighton, yep.
So we had some great tussles then. There was the competition back then was amazing, and I was really fortunate that was my time to play, I guess.
So summing up then, how do you see the state of footy moving forward?
Yeah, well, that's a broad question. I really like watching AFL. Now maybe it's because I've got a vested interest in it.
Yep.
But I still enjoy watching, how it evolves and the style of play. But I also enjoy watching SANFL and what we do. It's a different game. It's a more contested game.
Yep.
But I'll also enjoy. I went and watched a Division 4 game, Westminster versus Plimpton the other day, and I enjoyed that. So I just love for the
There
footy
was
at all.
There was
all
a fair
levels.
hanger taken in that game too.
Yes, yeah, Lecky from Westminster. That was a great mark. There was no action replay, so if you turned away and missed it, you're not going to see it again.
Managed to see it. Came up on Facebook today, I admit. So I only saw it today. So it was fresh in my mind as I asked you that, Craig. So yes, not quite as good as Heaney's, but it was still a bloody good mark. So,
no. But I think, look, honestly, footy's in good condition. It's not everyone's cup of tea, the way AFL's played, but no, look, I enjoy it.
Mate, one last question to get you out of here. North Adelaide didn't have the year that they would have liked this year. I did see your little notes that went out to the members, but give the Roosters faithful a bit of a recap as to how 2025 is going to be a good year for the Roosters.
Yeah, look, we're really working hard at the moment to try and bolster our list, as we do every year. Looking for the best players around. There's a couple of needs we could do with a few more inside mids. Ruckman are very rare at the moment. Be nice to pick up a Harry Boyd type player, but they're not always available. And well done to him and him and Snells for the McGarry last night. We're working really hard. Probably a few new assistant coaches coming in. Probably look at that. Generally, just make sure our process is just spot on. It's all very well to say, oh no, we want to play finals next year. We've got to do all the things that lead into that, and part of that is the preparation and pre-season and training as hard as we can to be ready to go in 2025.
And I admit I did follow a bit in the last minor round game of the year with young Angus Tully and Will Tasker debuting, so a bit of a connection there over the years. So I was following the Roosters a bit in that last game. I've got to be honest there, Craig. So, yeah, well done to those two. And I think Angus Tully's got a fair bit to work with. He's a bit unlucky this year with illness and injury and bloody wisdom teeth put him back and all sorts of stuff. Because I think he's got a bit to work with, young Tulls.
Look, him and Will,
Will finds the ball.
Will Franco as well coming through, and younger brother Ollie Franco will come up in the summer, and Hugh and Wisman plays probably now played about 15 to 20 games. So we've got some really good 18, 19-year-olds coming through. That in the last game against Westies, we had 6 under-18s playing in the reserves. So. We really like the local talent that's coming through, but they'll take a while to develop, so we still need to bolster that with some more experienced heads.
Sounds like you've got an exciting brigade coming through that the Roosters supporters can get excited about. So
plenty more for the Grog squad to kick on, mate.
Looking forward to that.
Look, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me, and
thanks, Craig.
Hopefully 225 is a good year for the Red and White.
And hopefully 2024 is still a long way to go. A little bit for the red and blue at this table talking to you at the moment, mate. So thanks, Craig.
All right, fellas.
Thank you very much,
chatting.
Mate.
Thanks, Craig.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, mate.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.